Hello, my name is Attorney Paul Cheng, and today's lecture is going to be about Family Law 101. But before we begin, what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to go to our first video that talks about the fact that this interaction does not create an attorney-client relationship. Today's question comes from Sandy in Irvine. This is, Dear Mr. Cheng, I know that you frequently give lectures to organizations on different areas of the law. You always seem to break down law into easy categories to understand. I would be shocked if you can do that here, but if so, can you break down the issues in a divorce for me, Sandy from Irvine? Well, Sandy, what I've done for you today is I've broken down family law into easy categories for you to understand. We're going to go over them very, very fast, so hopefully if you have any questions, you feel free to contact us. Essentially, family law can be divided into 5 general categories. Now, the application of these 5 general categories is where litigation occurs. But the reality is, before you get into any type of lawsuit, which is essentially filing for divorce, if you can understand these 5 general areas, you're really going to be able to deal with your divorce much better. The first is property division. Property division. And what property division entails is 2 general types. One is called community property, one is called separate property. Separate property essentially is yours, and it doesn't belong to the other person. Separate property is what you have before you come into the marriage. After you come into the marriage, essentially the marriage is like a curtain. So you have separate property here, community property here. Generally, whatever you get after the marriage is going to be community property. There are exceptions, gifts, things that you get from somebody else dying, but the general rule is separate property before marriage, community property after. The general rule is this: 50% of community property is going to go to the other side. We have a question one time, there was a woman, she worked really, really hard, and her husband basically was a slob. He stayed at home every single day. On divorce, her question was, I've worked so hard, is he going to get 50%? The answer is yes. The reason why is, it doesn't matter what the other side does. What matters is, whatever you gain during the marriage will be split 50-50. Whatever is considered separate property is what you stay with and keep at the time of divorce. The second is child support. Child support. And what that means is that you will have, essentially, Southern California, we use a DISL master. We can be able to categorize and figure out, based upon income and things of that nature, how much you owe your spouse's child in terms of child support. And that's paid usually on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. The next is physical custody. Physical custody. And what that means is the time that the child spends with the actual parent. So you can get an 80-20 physical custody situation. 80% of the time the child is with one parent, 20% of the time the child is with the other. Legal custody is totally different. Legal custody basically means who makes the decision, major life decisions for the child. Let me give you an example. You can have 80% of the time physical custody, but 80% or even 100% legal custody. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I was married and I got divorced and I had a child. 80% of the time the child could stay with me. But if I don't have legal custody, I can't be able to decide where the child goes to school. I can't be able to decide many of the life-changing issues in regard to the child. My spouse will be able to decide that. So when you talk about child custody, there are 2 parts, physical and legal. And the last thing is about spousal support. Spousal support. Although California has changed, essentially the general rule that many practitioners follow is this: if you've been married over 10 years, you're essentially going to be paying spousal support up until the time the person retires or even until the time the person dies. Spousal support is based on who makes more money. So essentially it's like a pendulum. Essentially, if you make more money during the marriage, you're going to be paying more spousal support when you get divorced. So it's a pendulum that goes up and down. One of the reasons why many movie stars get divorced right at the 10-year mark is because once you surpass 10 years, there's a heavy spousal support requirement that's done here in California. So again, 5 categories: property division, child support, physical custody, legal custody, and spousal support. Good luck to you and take care.